Hey, what's good, people? It's your boy ZenSphere here, back again with another RENoiSE tutorial. This time we're going to be looking at how to create an infinite acid bassline generator, because who doesn't want infinite acid? Here's a little example of the type of sounds that we'll be creating. Like that. So let's get started. You can start either with a saw wave or a square wave as kind of a typical classic acid bassline sound. I think I'll grab a saw wave to start. And I want to look at the use of the stepper modulation device as a basically a pitch step sequencer. This will kind of help us to create this semi-random generative style of bassline. So we're opening up a stepper in our pitch modulation tab. First thing we're going to do is turn this to unipolar so that we're just dealing with positive values. Now our default pitch range is 12 semitones, which if you know a little music theory is equal to an octave. And we can keep it at that octave to start. Our stepper length is 8 points, so this will give us an octave scale to work with. So we're going to open up our external editor, and let's turn this down to 12. Now, this is our kind of our vertical snap. Western music has 12 equal divisions to the octave. That's known as equal temperament. And because we can set this to 12 equal divisions of our stepper, we can then hit specific pitch values in Western equal temperament in our stepper device. So the pattern for a major scale is whole step, which is 2 semitones, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Oops, no, I'm sorry. Whole step, half step. Right. So now, since our step length is set to 1, when I press C4 repeatedly, we should hear a major scale as we cycle through these pitch values. And I switched to C5 there, a little easier to hear. Okay, so that worked. And say we wanted a minor scale, we could just flat the 3rd and flat the 6th, and then we have a minor scale. Okay, this is all well and good. We can also cycle through these values in a variety of different ways. If we use 2, then we'll skip every other, and so we'll never hit 4 of them. But if we cycle, by 3 or 5 or some other odd number, then we'll hit every pitch, but in a cycling fashion. If we go down below 0, we also hit this random cycle mode. Which may be useful, especially in the context of generative music. Now, we can also weight these probabilities. So say we want, random behavior, but we want to hear this, this root note more often, and say maybe we want to hear this 5th more often, and maybe hear this higher octave more often. So we can add in some more points. And the way the stepper works is it holds the last value. So now this 8, 9, and 10 are this full 1.0 value by default, because that's the last value represented. But say we want another octave, and we want another couple of fundamentals, and we want a 5th also. So our 5th is going to be whole step, half step. Whole steps are right there, 7 semitones. Now we have 2 of the octave, 2 of the fundamental, and an extra 1 of the 5th. So this should change the weighting. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to zoom in there. So now we hear that root and octave and fifth more frequently. So let's hold there and let's look at the filter section. Kind of the classic ACiD bassline sound is a resonant low pass filter. Let me just close out of the external editor here. Get to our filter section. We can start out with LP clean and go to resonance. We're going to crank the resonance a little bit. And then for our cutoff, we want to use either an envelope or an AHDSR or a fader. There are different ways of doing this. Let's try the fader. I'm going to set our to value to 0.5 and our from value we'll do to 1. And then I'm just going to change the curve a little bit here. And we'll leave the input at 0.5. We'll add an operand. And let's bring this down a little bit here. Now, if we change this to multiply, it's going to behave differently, where it will scale the values, versus addition, where it will just shift the values. Okay, so I want to actually see if I can do this properly. I want to lower this first. Nope, that's not correct. No, that's not going to work. Okay, never mind. I just wanted to start with a lower initial value without having our shape change too much. So I think what I'll do is I'll lower this down. I want a little bit more here. And there are, of course, different ways to do this by using the envelope device or the AHDSR. The thing we're going for is just the shape that we want that we can scale around. Resonance sounds pretty good. We can up the drive a little bit. And of course, you can also do the filtration in the effects section after the fact. That's a little bit more complicated. So for now, we'll just stick with the modulation section. And I'm going to tie a macro to this cutoff operand. And I'm going to scale this max value down to about there is our max, to 1.8. Oh, no, sorry. Let me change that. 1.8 is way too much. Should be like 0.9 or something. Yeah, 0.8, 0.9. Okay, there we go. Okay. I'm just going to bump up the gain a little bit here, just so we can hear what we're doing better. And we'll call this LP frequency, just for clarity. Okay, so now we'll go into our phrase section, and we're going to create a phrase. We just need one note column. And I think a length of 20 should be fine. So we're going to create a pattern here let me enable recording, where we have some note off triggers, but we want multiple note off triggers. And if we try to just input them, at least the way I have RENOiSE set up, it auto detects kind of the last note off position and won't allow you to do multiple note off triggers. So we're actually going to have to manually copy this and paste it. And we want this pattern C4 off, off, off. And then I'm going to copy that, and we'll just paste that continually. And the reason for this is we're going to use probability commands to change our gate length. This first note, we'll leave it as a definite trigger, but every other event here can have a Y value. And I want there to be a slight probability of this note off command triggering, a little bit higher probability of this note off command triggering, and a little bit higher probability of this note off command triggering. So I'm going to input some values here. Let's try 2, 3, and 4. And then we'll just have a C value for our note trigger. That means this will trigger about 75% of the time. This will trigger maybe 25% of the time. This will be whatever, less, and also less. So let's get this pattern going. So we'll do 2, 3, 4, and then we could enter this manually, but we can also just select the selection here. We got our C to start and our 2, 3, 4 following, and then we can just paste that, and then we don't have to do anything else. So now if we play this, we have starting to sound like an acid bass line. Now, there's usually some degree of glide that can take place between notes. So I'm just going to input some glide values. I just actually need to do 1, and we'll do our atomized selection again, copy it, and propagate it. So now we have a GC value for all of our note events. So now we should have some glide. Let's check it out. Okay. If we want to go even more generative with this, we can, of course, modulate this macro internally. And we can do that by using a macro control doofer, which you can get on my Gumroad, or if you know how to do it, it's easy enough. You just have to save it in the track section and then save it as a preset and then call it up in the instrument effects chain. So I think what I don't want just strictly random behavior, because that will sound, it doesn't sound bad, but what I want is more of like a Perlin noise type situation where we have random values, but they're changing and sliding around. So let's see what a good speed for this would be. I just want to make sure. I want to turn my key reset off, otherwise it'll just retrigger from the beginning each time. And let's try somewhere around there. A little too fast, so let's try. Still feels a little fast for me. And then if we wanted like some random variation as well with each key press, we could just add a random LFO here and make the amplitude like this. Okay, so that's the gist of the technique. You can, of course, add effects and modulation and such. Like, for instance, for these acid generators, I've got a little bit more going on. Got some compression, distortion, exciter. Yeah, so go crazy. You can do it however you want. But that's the basic technique. So now you have infinite acid bass lines at your disposal. If you want, you can sync this to beat, and then you can just kind of jam with a rhythm and make some acid. And of course, if you want to change the scale, you just go to this pitch stepper and you can change it however you want. Say you didn't even want standard notes, you could just create a linear curve here And now we have something closer to a chromatic scale. Okay, so have fun. You can experiment with different sounds. You know, square wave is also pretty classic. You can throw different waveforms in there, you know, double it up. Yeah, the sky's the limit. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. So yeah, that's what I got for you today. Hope that's helpful. Hope that's useful. And yeah, enjoy. Peace.